Okay, I think we should start our October 10th Board of Commissioners meeting. I'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to ask one question. Since the light, we're just having a little bit of a technical issue with not any light up here. There's a lot of light right there in the windows, but the shades are pulled.
I
I
suppose.
was just wondering if we could just open them up a little bit. We could get some lighting.
Yeah.
It'd make a big difference, I think, on your side over here.
Good observation. Yeah. Okay.
Your management material.
Yeah. That'll help a bit.
Yeah, it does help.
Whenever I gave suggestions like that where I used to work, they didn't like it. So. Who are you? Don't you know your place?
Yeah.
Mark is kind of gentleman.
I know.
Yeah.
We did that without a work order too, didn't we?
All right. We'll start the meeting.
Over here.
Yeah, there we go. Bob, would you give how about the agenda review?
Mr. Chair, there are no changes to the agenda today.
Move to approve. Second.
It's been moved second. Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Okay, now we have committee reports. Well, Drew, let's start with you. Are you ready?
Goodness, it's been a long time.
Yeah.
When's our first order of business? 9:15? Okay, I'll see what I can do here. Let me get my paper here
Oh,
together.
well, if you're
Sorry.
not, we could
No, I've
start.
got it here. It's all here. Here it is. I've got it. Thank you. So, September 26th is our last board meeting. And that's where we had that bond sale we've been working on for a while. Remember, it saved us quite a bit of money.
Mm-hmm.
And then we had Darren Walker here, Human Services Committee report, the vice chair. And we had that solar array that we approved. It just helps me kind of gel what we did, along with a lot of other things. Mark and I, after that short board meeting, met with Bob to talk about some important issues with negotiations with our unions. And so we talked about some of the health insurance issues and some of the changes that are proposed, how expensive it is getting for our health insurance. And Bob and his committee, the insurance committee here, has been working on some issues. And then was able to meet with our county parks board for lunch that day. They were out doing a parks tour. So Josh and what's the gal's name that works up there that helps a lot with Amber, and then some of the members. I met them at the Dam Store Cafe for lunch. They'd already almost completed their entire tour, but I thought it'd be good to get together with them out there. And it seems, there's a lot going on in our parks, especially since we've added this other one. And, at some point, I mentioned to Bob once that we might probably be looking at actually developing another department. I mean, just as an idea to look at. That right now we don't have a parks department. We really just have a parks budget line, from what I understand. And that's all still flows right through the county engineer, and he has to oversee all that, and there's a lot of details. So we're thankful that Josh is our parks supervisor, and does a good job. So then September 27th, the next day, I had to get up very early and drive up to Breezy Point by Brainerd, and we had our Minnesota Department of Health SHAC meeting, State Community Health Services Advisory Committee meeting. And as you know, I'm the chair-elect for next year, so I'm on their executive board. So we have an executive board meeting, started at noon, and that's also sort of getting the preparation for our conference, a 2-day conference, which started on the 28th and the 29th then. So that's our annual health conference for the Minnesota Department of Health. And the name of it this year, I chaired the planning committee. So the chair-elect, I believe, is the chair of the planning committee. And we met several times in St. Paul for about 4.5 hours and there's like 28 individuals involved in this, and especially Becky Bueller and Becky Seacrest, who really helped, and of course Liz Arvita helps with things. really help put it together. We get the ideas going, flowing. We do some work, how you put all papers around the room and you get all these ideas and trying to figure out what areas are we going to have our concurrent sessions about. What are the topics in health that we want to cover, and to try to be fair to cover many different areas because there's so many. And the name of it is Be a Part of the Conversation. And it was really interesting to be at this conference, to be a part of the conversation. Commissioner Ed Ellinger, Dr. Ellinger, he's our commissioner, did a wonderful job. And Doug Hipsch, he's our chair right now, commissioner. It was talking about our stories, our communities, and our health. And one of the things we've been focusing on for quite some time is called the triple aim. Commissioner Ellinger really pushes this. The triple aim is just three, very important statements that are for us to think about. And I'll tell you what they are: expanding our understanding of health. It might sound, simple, but to do that, expanding our understanding of health. And then the second one, to apply health in all policies. So we've heard me talk about that everything that Vance does, Kip, Mark, Will, other commissioners, and our state legislature, whatever we decide, our city council, it really impacts health. In the long run, it affects our community in some way or another, either positively or negatively. It can actually have something that we need to think about. And then the third thing is strengthen our capacity of health communities to create a healthy future. And so that's some of the goals we've been working on. And this conference, being a part of the conversation, I'm going to say I heard from many people who have attended for years saying it was probably one of the very best they've ever been to. And I just think it really, really was meaningful. It was such a meaningful conference. There was a lot of concurrent sessions. We also did the same thing that AMC kind of did, where you had the tabletops. So you can't get to all these different topic areas. So we had like 15, 16 at least, maybe more than that, maybe 20 learning stations in a big room. And many topics. So you go there for 20, 30 minutes and talk about things with those folks. We had a couple special people come and help us. Tane Danger. He is a person that helps get the conversation going. He's in theater, and he goes around and helps organizations to open up and get themselves going and talking about things.
Is that his real name?
Yes. Tane Danger, and what a character. I mean, he's just out there. He'll make us do little workshop things together too out in the audience. I turn to Kip and I say, you start the conversation and I have to end it. So you just start a conversation, and it was just kind of fun to do those kind of things. Then there's another gentleman named David Mann, who is he's an actor, a known actor. He's an author of quite a few books, and he is so good at telling the story that even Pat McDermott can understand this. Sure. Yeah, even the county attorney. No, but he gets hired by law firms to start out cases, to lay the groundwork for telling the story of how things happened. And he tells the truth. He's just so good at doing it that it lays the groundwork for how this occurred, so that it impacts the what do you call it, the folks? Jury. Yeah, it impacts the jury or the judge, whoever's there. And so he helped us with that process. How to tell our story, how to tell the story of health. Because there's like 470 people at this conference. And it was really something to be a part of that process. And it seemed like that theme carried out throughout the conference. There was a lot of good discussions in the concurrent breakout sessions. I went to one that was called We Are Water, and it's a touring exhibit from the Smithsonian Institute. And it was mainly about public engagement and community engagement with others. And what does water mean to you? It wasn't about this, more technological view. It was more, what's the value of water in your life, and to share stories about how it was just a very interesting thing that we did. So, and that was done in another town here in Minnesota. I'm trying to think of the city. The Historical Society, their Humanities and Arts and Culture Center, and the health department there got together and working on this public engagement. It's a tour, it's a traveling exhibit, so it'll go to about 4 or 5 other cities in Minnesota now. And so what have you learned from somebody different than yourself? And sometimes we're so busy with our lives that we don't take time to hear somebody who's really quite different from us, and can they teach us something? So it was quite an interesting couple of days up there in Brainerd. It was a great conference, that's all I wanted to tell you. And then Monday the 2nd, TZD, Nicollet County, Blue Earth County, Safe Roads meeting. Annette does a great job. We're talking about the Joyride and where we've been and where we're going. So, that's the safe, sober cab type rides, which our county is supporting, and a lot of other area businesses are supporting. Scott Reeton, you know him from Region 9? Mm-hmm. We've been trying to get somebody in our committee to be the chair, and I think they always stare at me, and I just can't do it. There's just so much going on. I would love to do it, but finally Scott stepped up, and he knows so much and had so many experiences with TZD. You know what I mean? So Scott's a great guy. He'll be a great chair. Then I had a meeting with Bob that day on Monday the 2nd. The 5th, NACO Health Steering Committee call-in. Of course, we talked about the Graham Cassidy bill then, and the impact, some of the budget reductions that are being proposed. And I'll tell you, some of those things go forward, it'll be different. It'll be different because we're going to have to look at how much in our health department here are we going to support with our local dollars, or will the state support? Because the states are going to have a huge reduction in the financing that they get from the federal government to carry out a lot of the things that we do. Remember, we heard from one of our public health staff how much time it takes to go out with the tuberculosis, and make sure they get their pills, and so it's the health. I hate to use the term, but the health of the herd could be threatened by not supporting our community health departments. And so that capacity has to be thought about here with our board and with all the boards in Minnesota if something like that goes forward. And then the 5th, Twin Rivers Art Gallery show I attended. Noelle Lawton, she's the director down there, and we support that. We give them community dollars, and I think they're asking for some more support from around the community. It was a great show. And then Sunday, Lutheran Social Services, I'm an ambassador. I remember I mentioned that before. So I spoke out in Will's area at Zion Lutheran.
In Lake Crystal.
Yeah, Lake Crystal. A lot of folks knew that, because I announced I'm a commissioner. Of course, they knew that, and they all told me that this is Will's district. I said, I should have called them for permission before I came out here, but no.
Yeah, I'd have given you a pass.
Would you? Okay. And so I give a message of Lutheran Social Services. 1 out of every 65 people in the state of Minnesota has a relationship somehow with Lutheran Social Services. So it's quite an impact of things that they do. And that even includes, my wife was adopted from Korea as a baby, and Lutheran Social Services did that whole adoption process. So Pastor Andrea Myers was great to work with out there. And then I was asked to bring the message, so I also brought the message forth from the Bible. Then on Monday, October 9th, I presented yesterday at the Professor Josh Berkenpass's class in government. Most of them are all law enforcement. And every year I usually get asked either by Avery Johnson or somebody, and it was a great time just to present to about a room of about 30, almost 30 students, and get some dialogue going. And we were there for, yeah, I was going to tell you. And so that completes my report. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Drew. On this point, we'll have our Economic Development Authority meeting.
Would you like to recess the meeting?
Oh yeah, and then we have to recess our meeting, so.
I'll move to recess.
Recess, we have a second. Move to recess, second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carries. We are I was gonna say.
We're gonna lose it.
So, okay. So,
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning,
How are
Kristen.
you?
You want the other two to come up here? You can have the other two
come
come
on
up
up.
here. You can have Dan and we'll have everybody.
Come on up.
Kristen will have you introduce everybody.
We're
even
friendly
though-
up here.
They won't be able to see on camera because there's barely any light here, but so don't worry about it.
All right.
You know, some of us are balding enough, there's enough light shining back.
Mr. Chair, would you like to call the meeting to order?
Yep, we'll call the meeting of the Economic Development Authority of Blue Earth County to order. We have the agenda review.
Mr. Chair, there are no changes to the agenda today.
Okay.
Move to approve.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carries. And we have the minutes.
I'll move the minutes.
Second.
Okay. All those any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carries. And now we got our public hearing on the 5-year annual PHA plan. I think this is when we have you, maybe you can start with
Certainly.
introducing. Well, we kind of know you, but you're kind of new too, and we'll let these other ones
So
introduce everybody.
I'm Kristen Prasosky, the Housing and Economic Development Coordinator. We also have Nancy Bolkelman, who is the Housing and Community Development Manager, and Dan Rochato, who is the foreperson of maintenance for all of our public housing in Blue Earth County.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Thanks for having us. Chair people and members of the EDA, before you today is the annual PHA plan, as well as the 5-year capital fund plan. And generally speaking, the PHA plan is a reflection of a continuation of programs that we currently operate, including the Housing Choice Voucher Program, the Public Housing Program, the Family Self-Sufficiency Program, and the Bridges Program that assists households or people that have serious and persistent mental illness. Within the capital fund plan, basically speaking, we plan to utilize those funds to modernize units as turnover happens, because that gives us the opportunity to do renovation when it needs to be done. As well as completing site improvements that are going to be necessary in the coming year or couple of years, depending on how that gets spread out. And my apologies that we couldn't get this to you any sooner, I'm going to hand out just a revised PHA plan. The change is the very last page has attachment A, and that has to do with the Resident Advisory Board meeting that was held last Thursday. So I will pass those out. It was really a fantastic meeting for the Resident Advisory Board. A very engaging discussion with a lot of good suggestions that came from the attendees of the meeting and participants that we have. Some of the items that they noted was, first of all, just an expression of gratitude for the assistance that is received and the stability that it provides for their families. There was a lot of encouragement and great suggestions around continued use and expansion of the Family Self-Sufficiency Program and home ownership programs, including the possibility for some additional education and counseling being offered to participants of that program. There were also suggestions about centralizing a location for resources, expressed the need for continued rehab of existing housing to keep things in good condition, and a few concerns that were raised that one of them seems a little bit outside of things that we can control directly, but the use of payday loans, and then the other item that came up was just a general lack of affordable options in rental and ownership, and that certainly is something that we will continue to work toward. So at this time, I can take any questions. Dan and Nancy can take questions that you may have. Otherwise, it is a public hearing, and there may be people.
Yep. Okay, well, at this point, it is a public hearing on the plan, economic plan here. Anybody wishing to comment about the proposed plan may do so now. And please step forward to the podium and state your name and address for the record. Again, if anybody wishes out in the public to come forward to speak on the housing plan here, please step forward and state your name and address. Again, third time, if there are any more comments from the public, come forward. Okay, well, we did 3 times and bring it back to the board and open it up.
I do have a couple of questions.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, we can do, or we want to
Should
do,
we- should we
should
have a
probably
motion
move
and second?
we do the motion first and then, yep.
I'll do the motion.
It's been moved and second to approve the proposal. All right, so then we have,
I have a few questions.
Sure.
Go ahead, Drew.
So when you're talking about those home ownership programs, you mentioned that, is that the one where they do an educational outreach program for people who are looking to buy a home, and they're basically, I think, required to have this training before they can get, into a program with, let's say, a local, state, federal program, dollars to help them to buy?
Yep, so one of the, I think you're referring to Home Stretch, and that would be one of the programs that was raised, in addition to other programs that we offer, including the home ownership voucher program. So, and Nancy is very well versed in Home Stretch and home ownership programs, and maybe can add some detail.
Sure. So I know that the Home Stretch program is a requirement for anyone transferring from Section 8 into home ownership, or many of the state and local down payment assistance programs will require them to go through the Home Stretch, and that's where they do get budgeting, credit counseling, they get information about maintaining a home, just the whole buying process, so realtors come in and talk to them, home inspectors come and talk to them. So it gives them the full spectrum. It's an 8-hour course and really gives a lot of detail. So we actually have professionals in the field talking about the programs. So not only do they get the information in the manual, but they also get the real life situations, the important things that those professionals think those families need to know. So it's a really good learning experience
And do you know
before they start going
where
to
the dollars come from for that program?
That program is through the Minnesota Home Ownership Center.
Okay.
And I'm sure those funds they get from the federal and state resources.
And that even for the educational portion of that, the Home
Right.
Stretch?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And the families also pay a $25 fee, and that really does cover the manual that they get.
Okay.
And then agencies can apply to the Home Ownership Center to get funds to support staffing of the program.
Okay. I know there's more of those happening in our community too. I mean, there's one that just happened, I know, not too long ago, but they take their Section 8 dollars and it's applied as if they had an apartment renting somewhere. Of course, let's just say that the rent's $800 and they're getting $400 Section 8, and they're paying the other $400 because they're working. So then that helps them get into a home that they can afford.
Right.
With those dollars, correct?
So what the bank does is they actually take the subsidy that the family gets for rental subsidy, and they use that as additional funding to support leveraging a home in the community. And many times what we find is those using the dollars for the Section 8 home ownership is more affordable than renting an apartment in our community, so it really helps the program as well. We don't have to pay as much of a subsidy.
Oh.
It's over a time frame, and if we can get them self-sufficient, working towards self-sufficiency,
Yeah.
maybe we only have to help them for 5 years rather than 15 years.
Yeah.
So,
That's good, that's very good.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any way that we can provide more affordable housing in our community? I know you mentioned a lot of these dollars are going to go towards based off of our current stock, more or less. I mean, I know that's, thinking about Patty when she would be here, she'd talk a lot about, putting new roofs on buildings, windows or doors or that kind of thing. And I'm just wondering, is there any way that we can, is there any programs that you're aware of that would help us maybe with some of the current stock that we have in Mankato or outside that would help to remodel those to make them more livable and still keep them affordable? Is there something going on that we should know about that would help us?
I'm not aware of any new resources that have become available recently. Within Mankato, we do utilize community development block grant dollars for rehab, and a fair amount of that money is allocated for that purpose. Outside, and Mankato gets a direct allotment. Outside of Mankato, for communities in Blue Earth County, it would be a matter of applying for the Small Cities Development program through deed. But that can really assist with rehab of the housing stock in the communities outside of Mankato. So Mankato's dollars have to be spent within the city limits of Mankato, but the Small Cities program is something that can be done in other areas of Blue Earth County.
I was just recently with our Tim Edwards just to look at one of our forfeited properties, and it's in one of the smaller towns, and it's a big, nice 4-bedroom home. Somebody at one time had started doing work. They replaced the windows. They did some other work on it. The furnace wasn't very old, but it is so. It's so dilapidated that in my mind, I'm thinking it's going to take $40,000-$50,000 minimum. It needs a new roof, and the house has been sitting empty for I think 4 or 5 years, 4 years. and it doesn't help that town, you know, if
Right.
it doesn't, I don't know, that's why I'm asking. I'm asking that maybe there's some dollars somewhere that we should start looking at for and evaluating a house structure to see if it's worthy of being repaired, and then including it in with affordable housing of some sort, so that people could live there.
And I think that certainly if that were a decision made, that could be a potential of something to move forward. And you're right about the first step is evaluating whether
It's worthy.
it's,
of it.
yeah. And we've had, that is the first thing we do with every rehab project really, is to see if it's suitable for rehab. Because there can be cases where unfortunately things have dilapidated to a point where it
Right.
doesn't make sense to
Right.
put a lot of funds into rehabbing.
Right.
You know, I've got a question about low-income housing. And we continue having these meetings saying, okay, about low-income housing, and people go to the meetings and we understand, yes, we have an issue. But there's no fix. We're not seeing the fix. This is somewhat of a fix. But you know, in driving around the community, it used to be that you thought low-income housing was trailer houses. We have trailer courts around the city, and it seems like different areas are trying to get rid of their trailer courts instead of trying to improve them or make them bigger. But trailer courts are low-income housing. Now, do these funds apply to somebody purchasing a trailer house?
So the funds that we utilize as part of this plan are not, because any funding that we're talking about here is for whether it's capital funds for the operation and maintenance of our public housing stock.
Right.
And we own either, you know, whether it's a multifamily building, a triplex, a duplex, or single-family scattered sites. So none of those funds would go toward any type of a manufactured home. I believe, and Nancy can correct me if I'm wrong, HUD would not permit the purchase of a manufactured home with a voucher, and it has a lot to do with the fact that the way that those properties are titled is very different. Now, I can say that there's been a group of staff people, and this is specific to Mankato, so I can't speak to efforts being completed outside of Mankato and Blue Earth County, but within Mankato there's a group of staff people that have really worked with park owners and managers to make improvements in the park.
Sure.
So that could be removing abandoned structures that were causing a lot of blight, making sure that the street signs are there so that public safety can respond quickly when there's an issue, increasing lighting. And we're actually partnered with Minnesota Valley Action Council to start a pilot program where we help an owner replace their manufactured home with
That'd
a
be
newer,
awesome.
right, newer used, but newer used, because we found with rehab of those, you could put $25,000 into it and it's not worth it. And
Yeah.
so it just makes a lot more sense to try to look at a newer used. So we're just starting, we got our two first households approved for that.
I would love to see a meeting get together where we bring park ownership and the real low-income housing people, the people that run maybe Lloyd Management and stuff, who run some of these apartments that they're renting for $600 and $650 a month. That's low-income housing. You know, when you rent an apartment for $1,500 to $2,000 a month, that's not low income. And these people making $30,000 to $40,000 a year can't afford that. You know, but I'd love to get together and have a meeting with the park ownership and find out really what we can do as a county and a city to get together and really help and to take care of low-income housing, instead of just sitting there saying, yeah, we do have a problem. We all know we have a problem. We don't have to go to a meeting for 2 hours to say we have a problem. We have to figure out how to fix that problem. That's what the issue is.
Yep.
And if we can get these folks that actually work in it, I think one of our former county commissioners owns some a trailer court, Andy Johnson.
Yep.
And get get Andy Johnson, maybe some of the other park owners together, along with some of the management companies that really run the low-income apartments, and find out what can the city and the county do to really get together and help and really nail this low-income housing, so we don't have those issues like, you know, if we need to, you know, get together with the city and get 60, 70 acres of land that we can have a new trailer court.
Yeah.
You know, maybe that would work, you know, and actually, you know, get the low-income housing issues attacked. Because a lot of people, myself included, started in a trailer house. And, you know, it's a good starting home.
Yeah.
People can't afford $175,000 to $200,000 homes. Just can't do it.
Yeah, and so we certainly understand that that really is a piece of helping solve the problem. And the park, to your point about the park owners and managers, we wouldn't have been able to move the pilot forward. They've been active participants, engaged with staff moving forward, and they're putting in some of their own money and their own resources to be able to make that happen. So
they're
it's
all
been a
good
really
people.
good,
It's just that sometimes, you know, but if you can do something, get something together, I would be willing to jump in there and help.
All right,
and just to bounce off of that, Vance, can I join you?
Sure,
Because
I love it.
We're both kind of the Mankato City Commissioners, you know, and I agree. And I've been and there's a trailer park up there up by Quick Trip off of Bassett, and I don't know what's going on with that park, but it's pretty rough, and they're trying to keep it clean. It's a neighborhood. I mean, it's a neighborhood, and as those become so dilapidated that they have to move off, they're just moving them off and not replacing any of them. So it's, you know, there's some here, then there's 2 or 3 missing, then there's another one, and I really think, even though it's a privately owned piece of land, as that is, the city doesn't own the streets through there. Even the one over by the city building now that bought the old highway department, that's a big trailer park. Those are all those streets in there are not city. They're all owned, and so the city kind of has a hands-off approach to that trailer park because it's, you know, it's separate. But I think because of the issues that are going on, there's got to be some way that we can get involved with that, and figure out a program or something to help with those trailer parks as neighborhoods. I'm a Lincoln Park neighborhood person, you know, and I'm concerned about my neighborhood. When you drive into a trailer park, it feels like a neighborhood. I mean, you've got all these addresses, you've got roads, you've got the same thing you have anywhere, although it's not city streets. And so they have a lot of maintenance costs, and it's hard for them to turn a dollar if they're going to start improving their neighborhood. And I don't know how we can help them, like Vance is saying.
Well, obviously we can't do it here and now, but
No.
if you can look towards and say, hey, we got 2 commissioners that are willing to sit down and sit with city council and you know, throw some ideas together to really help
Make changes.
fix the low income housing, instead of coming out and saying, yeah, we have a problem, let's see what we can do to fix it. And if we can get federal money, if we can get state money, you know, if we can get the USDA in here and help us out, that would be even better. But I mean, I don't know the answer. That's why we hire you experts to help us out. But I do have the ideas, and I do have some neighborhoods that are in my district that are, you know, are there. And you know, you drive by these trailer houses and say, well, gee, that's really a dilapidated trailer house. But then you look at the people, and they're low income, they're making $30,000, $40,000 a year, maybe. Some of them are in Social Security, some of them are having those issues, and that's all they can afford. So you can't cut them down, they're doing the best they can.
Exactly.
So if you can help, I'd sure appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
And one last comment is, if you don't know Kristen very well, she's got a background from Deed, and knows more than probably anybody in this town about programs that have been around for a while, right?
I don't know if I can claim to know more than anybody else in
Well,
the town,
okay,
but
but-
I do have a background at Deed
Yeah.
and really enjoy trying to, align resources that we have to improve, economic opportunities and housing
Yeah.
for families in our county.
Thanks for everything you do for the city. and the
Well,
county.
Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, and I want to add, I have 3 trailer parks in my area, and
I know
I've been
you do.
cognizant of this for a long time and talked about it. And of course, know that we're active in the instant homeless, the ones that are come to town that are homeless and have no place. So I do appreciate fellow commissioners bringing that up. I guess it's about as good
Probably got
a
3
places to bring it up.
commissioners that are willing to get together.
Yeah, now you have to have a public meeting, so yeah. All right, do we have any further questions, discussions on the plan? Okay, hearing none, I guess we can vote. Nobody has anything else? All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed, carries. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
You too, Dan.
We need to get Dan a county shirt.
Yeah, yeah.
Say, Dan, we could put our logo on one side.
Bigger to go over the top.
No. We work together.
Oh, that's funny.
All right,
What did I do with five?
so we got, yeah, we can,
IT.
yep. Yep,
We
we
need to
have,
adjourn the EDA meeting, Mr. Chair.
yeah, we have to, I was just saying, we have to adjourn, I was just looking what was ahead. So
Move to
let's
adjourn.
adjourn the, yep, we have motion to and a second?
Second.
Second, okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carries. Meeting adjourned of the Economic Development Authority, and well, it looks like we have actually, do we take Phil, or do we have to go back?
Well, got Charlie and...
Charlie and everything I
Phil.
had, yep. Well, that's what I mean, we want Charlie and Phil up here.
Yep.
Both you guys.
Yep,
And Angie, looks like.
and Angie, we got a big
And
show.
Angie, too.
We got the big show here.
The trio.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
Don't feel like you're in the dark. Some of us
I
might
use
be.
my flashlight if that's okay. Well, thank you for the time this morning. And as you can see from the memo that's in your board packet, what we're bringing to you today is a replacement of the Human Services Electronic Document Management System. And so we're looking at replacement of that, looking at hardware, software, and services for replacement of that system. A little background on the current system. What the current system does is it provides productivity tools for workers in the financial assistance, child support, and the child care assistance areas. And it does that through providing electronic versions of DHS forms and local forms. It also provides document imaging. Some of the other things it does is it helps move the documents electronically through the system, or what we call a workflow. And it also provides certain types of integration with state of Minnesota systems. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the how of this particular project, and then Phil and Angie will talk about the why. So basically right now the system that we've got was put in 2009, and it's definitely in need of updating. There are many things it doesn't do that are needed in today's world by the workers in those particular areas. So as far as what the new system will do, in just a moment Phil and Angie will talk about that. I'm going to skip down to the process used. So the process we used with the Human Services staff put together a list of requirements, well documented the requirements of what they needed. And from a period of September of 2016 to the early part of this year, they did extensive research on what was available in the market. That included a lot of online demonstrations of products from other vendors and several visits to another county just to see what was out there in the market. And as a result of that, the evaluation that was done, a particular product called CaseWorks by Next Chapter Technologies was deemed to be not just the best option, but the only option to meet the requirements that we had within Human Services. And so because there was no other product that was offered that had the unique features that we needed, we decided to do a sole source procurement for the CaseWorks product. Now I should talk a little bit about that because typically we bring in bids for you folks to approve. Pat did some good research for us on the statutory requirements to do single source procurement. And statute does provide, although usually Minnesota is assumed to be a bid type of state for counties when we procure things, statute does provide that in certain circumstances where after a search is done and no other vendor is found that can provide the unique service or the product that you're looking for, that you are allowed to do a single source procurement. Now, there are some certain requirements that are set out that you have to fulfill in order to prove that it's unique and to justify the single source procurement. We worked with Pat's office to make sure that we met those requirements. Also, Brown County acquired Caseworks a year ago using the same process, and we followed their process that had been put together by their staff and their county attorney. So that's the reason that we're going this particular route. So if we move down to the action that's or to the recommended vendor, it's Next Chapter Technologies, and the proposed contract is $145,958. Phil and Angie will speak in a moment about federal reimbursement that can bring that cost, the end cost, down to the county. That particular expenditure is budgeted in the Human Services budget. And so I'll let Phil and Angie talk now just about why we're doing this and federal reimbursement.
Thanks, Charlie. Mr. Chair and Commissioners, thanks for hearing us today. I did ask Angie to come along because, as you know, we try to roll it up for you and give you a decent summary, but there's a lot of work that goes into this, and staff has put in a lot of hours, and we've asked Bob to join us at times to just really do our due diligence on this, and as Charlie said, Pat reviewing some of the contracting pieces. So I'm going to speak just to some of those practical components real briefly, and then Angie will go through the finances of the federal reimbursement and some of our costs in the contract, and then we'll see if there's other questions that you all have. We really have three main points of improvement that we're trying to go to through this solution. The first one is METS, which is the healthcare part of what we've gone through in the change with the ACA. We went from a paperless system that we invested in back in 2009 back to a paper system because of the problems we've had and the difficulties. And so things have, as you all are aware of, have been tough. And so what they offer as part of this package is a METS solution that will help our financial workers process things, go back to a paperless system. The other vendor does have that solution, but this was much more cost effective. So that was a similar comparison component. The other thing that we really like with this vendor is their maintenance structure. They really do have a lot of add-ons and upgrades that are included in their pricing, and our current vendor, a lot of those are customized pricing. In other words, that there's a lot of details that will get added to our cost as time goes on. And so this vendor really does roll those together, and we do believe that they have some advantages with customer service as well. So just to let the board know, that was another big component. So the METS component, maintenance and customer service. And then finally, social services. We're always have been a paper-based system in social services. They have a social services solution that's very attractive to us, including a component that got to Charlie's point that there is no competition for, which is a mobile application solution. And as we look to our building project, to allow our field staff, our social workers, to be mobile is very attractive to us. So that will be a build that won't be part of this initial phase, but the second phase, that's what we're looking to do. And so hopefully we'll get our timing right and be able to have staff operate more mobily as well. So those were the big three that I had for the board, just to highlight kind of the components internal to that. And then if Angie could just speak to some of the financial pieces.
Morning, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. So when you look at the cost of this, as Charlie indicated, it's a $145,958 contract. Typically, when we look at these kind of investments in the financial assistance arena, we would look at a 50% federal reimbursement for this. But because we're including also some child support files to this, that actually has an enhanced match at 66%. So when you do the math and it all shakes out, I would anticipate between a 53 and 55% reimbursement on this. So we're looking at the county cost of this after reimbursement being around $68,000. So that makes it attractive to us as well to move forward from a financial perspective. As Phil talked about, our current vendor uses an add-on methodology. Every time there's an upgrade, there's a cost to it. The vendor that we're looking to contract with has it all included. The Met solution itself was quite costly, and as we look at when does our investment with this implementation and the inclusion of the upgrade costs in our annual maintenance, when does that surpass what we would have invested with our current vendor? It brings us to mid-2020 is when it becomes financially beneficial to make that switch. So even with the cost of the implementation, we become ahead financially in 2020. And so that's a really good rate as we look at what it would be. And that also does not include any upgrades that we might need to have to our base system now. So in actuality, you know, it may be a lot faster than that, but that's the time frame for that financial crossover to happen. Another piece about this is that our current system does not update the forms that we use manually. So they update them manually. And so what happens is when DHS changes their format for their forms that we're required to use, we need to look through those forms, each one of those every month, and compare with what do we have in our current system. And so then our supervisor spends 2 to 4 hours every month, and then works with staff in word processing to manually update those forms. So that's a significant amount of person power being put into these forms updates. The vendor that we're looking at automatically does that, and that's part of the cost that's all rolled in. So we would be able to eliminate that tedious work through this process as well.
Are the contract guidelines for length of time the same? I mean, is it a 2-year contract? What is it? Is it 3-year? What's the contract period?
Contract, there's a couple things here. One is the implementation and installation. That will take place probably through maybe about February, March of next year. And then, like most software systems, there is yearly maintenance that you have to pay for. So this contract right now is for purchase and installation.
Okay.
And then there'd be, just like every other piece of software, there's a separate contract for ongoing maintenance.
And how does that compare? I'm just wondering how the maintenance, because that's a cost once we sign on that we're going to have in your department. You know, I'm just wondering.
Correct. You know, the maintenance is, I'd have to go back and look specifically, but it's fairly similar. I think it might actually be a little bit less than what we were paying right now. So,
Charlie, if I may,
Sure,
it is our current annual costs, which are increasing year over year. Currently at $65,000 a year for our current system. We would be looking at an annual cost of $52,000 for the current one.
That's
so
a
it's a
good
cost
reduction.
reduction,
$13,000.
and an expansion of what it offers. Yeah.
Yeah, so give them one bang. Right. Thank you.
And you're going paperless again.
Yeah.
We will
Save some trees.
yeah.
and about 50 file cabinets.
Oh no, there goes
That's
the eBay
huge.
again.
That is huge. I hope it works.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have any further questions?
I'll move approval.
We need approval. Second, okay. Hear any questions and more discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carries. I want to thank you very much.
Thank you.
Looks like it is a win-win, I believe. So, yeah.
Yes.
Say, Phil?
Yes.
Okay.
Just a short thing.
What time is it? We got a few things we could do.
No, we're way behind.
Yep. Do we want to try it? Can we get the Ponderosa landfill contract in? Try that and then take a break? Hi, Scott. Morning.
Morning, Scott.
I can, but I don't have to.
Welcome to our dark corner, our light corner.
We're in the dark back here.
Morning, Scott.
Good morning.
Morning.
Appreciate the board hearing this. We've worked on this issue for a number of months or years to put it together, and I think we've got something for you to consider at this point. But as you know, back when Blue Earth County purchased the landfill in 1996, we went out for requests for proposals. Ponderosa Management Company has won won the right to operate the landfill for the county at that time, and has since then operated for us in a series of multi-year contracts. In 2016, when that contract ended, we had a situation where they wanted to increase the price of the contract, which was at that time about $783,500, wanted to increase it to be based on volume that they handled. Because of the time limits that we were under that contract, we decided to go ahead with that. We projected the cost to be about $1.1 million, significant increase. But we signed a one-year contract. The board approved the one-year contract, and during that time, Environmental Services looked at the different options, including operating it ourselves. We came to the board in a workshop with our operational costs and so on. That was made public, and Ponderosa Management Company came back to us and asked if we would consider operating or contracting with them to operate at that cost. And we asked the board, and the board's direction was to go ahead and see what was out there as availability for a contract and so on. The first thing we did was back out contract costs that were county alone, because the Blue Earth County was going to purchase several pieces of equipment. We backed those out, and that made a comparable cost for their operation of $787,000. And so we've worked under that assumption for this contract. We brought several of this information to the contractor, worked with them to look at various things. We also talked about a lot of other changes that we wanted to see. So the contract includes a number of things that are in here that were not in the previous contracts. We would purchase 2 loaders and a haul truck in addition to our current equipment that we own, 2 dozers and the compactor. We would then be responsible for the maintenance costs for county-owned equipment, which is similar to what we're doing now with our equipment that we have out there. Ponderosa Management would provide a full-time manager on site. They do not provide that under previous contracts. They were always on call, but this would be nice to have them full-time on site. They will provide a $2 million environmental liability insurance as a co-permittee. That's in addition to all their other insurance requirements under state law. They will provide the containers to transfer all the waste from the service center to the landfill. They would provide the trailers and the roll-off containers for special waste collected at the service center. This includes things like recycling, tires, mattresses, appliances, and electronics. Currently, we rent those. So that would be included in the contract. They would provide the transportation for special waste to any location within 15 miles of the landfill. That's currently outside of the contract. We pay extra for that currently. They would provide updated scale software for the operation of the scale. That's an important component. The scale software is becoming quite old, antiquated, and by their providing it, that's about $20,000 to $30,000 cost to them. In addition to that, it will include a license for Blue Earth County so that we can tap into that information at any time rather than having to go out to the landfill to get it. Some other components the contract includes, like I said, the first year would be $787,000. That would be adjusted annually based on a consumer price index, similar to the way it's done now under contracts. The contract price is for 5 years, November 1st, 2017 through October 31st, 2022, with up to 3 one-year contract extensions possible if both sides agree. Ponderosa Management Company will continue to provide marketing of waste for the landfill, which is an important key on why we first hired them. That basically makes the landfill whole as far as the amount of waste to operate it. And as the board is aware, this is solely funded as an enterprise fund. There's no county costs in this at all, the landfill. The county has the option under this new contract to discontinue the contract if in the event that ownership should change. This is added because I used to put this into contracts with our recycling companies because they changed ownership several times. We did use that clause at one point. We've also added additional language on failure to perform requirements, and that have been included. This has been a very successful working relationship with Ponderosa Management Company over the years. The proposed contract is only $3,500 more than the 2009-2016 final year contract before the payment was increased for the volume contract that we had last year. And there are a number of items that will be provided by Ponderosa Management that were not included in previous contracts. The County Attorney's Office has reviewed this contract. We've used the same general contract for a number of years, but we felt it was a good time to update some of the language on data practices and so on, so they've reviewed it and we've implemented those changes. Environmental Services would recommend that the County Board approve the landfill operations contract agreement with the Ponderosa Management Company for operating the Ponderosa landfill. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
Move to approve. Second. Moved in second. Any questions, Scott?
We've had several conversations about this at work sessions, and
Yes.
we're all very well educated on this program.
Yeah.
I think it was an exercise that was taken out by our staff that was done very well, and I think they did a good job outlining the parameters of how we're going to operate the landfill, and at the end of the day, we ended up getting a better contract.
Right.
But if this doesn't work out, I certainly would not be afraid to pull out that document, so make sure you keep that handy.
We will.
And
We're very comfortable.
I was comfortable with trying to move
Yes.
forward. We weren't done negotiating that price yet with you, but that's all right. We got to where we needed to be. So
Right.
thanks for all your information.
Yeah, and I appreciate all the work your staff has put into this. I think even though everybody looks down on landfills, our landfill really is a prime example of how they should be across the state. And it takes work from you and it takes work from the management company that's doing this. So thank you for all your work.
Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot. I have one question too, and it's sort of unrelated, but how do we deal with glass in this arena?
Glass is still recyclable at this point, but because are no markets for it, the state is now looking at glass for things like road construction and so on. Clear glass has still got a recycling, is still profitable, but colored glass is not.
Yeah.
But glass does not make up near the amount of waste that used to be in the past. It's a lot of it's plastic and replaced the glass, so it's not the biggest issue anymore. In fact, we had a lot of glass at our recycling facility a number of years ago, and we used that when we developed a drainage system. We used the glass instead of aggregate for that. At the landfill itself.
Interesting.
It works. Okay.
Good stuff. Thank you.
Anybody? Okay. Let's see. All those in favor? The motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Scott.
Thanks, Scott.
That's good. Well, I have 10.
Let's do the sale.
Should we do the sale of bonds? I think take care of that. That's what okay. Let's see here. Yep, Lisa and.
Morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Thank you.
We're not trying to keep you in the dark.
And Craig. Yeah.
It is dark in here.
What happened? How are you doing there?
I'm doing good. Do you want me to just start off? Or do you have any introductory? Okay. Well, Mr. Chair and members of the board, this is a recommendation for the sale of $3,975,000 of general obligation ditch bonds. We are asking for your authorization today to proceed with the sale that would occur on November 6th at 12:30 in our offices, with award of the bonds the following morning by the County Board on November 7th. The recommendation in your packet is a summary of the sale, and just to give you a few highlights. What's being financed are 4 ditches, 2 county ditches, 12 and 56, and 2 judicial ditches, 9 and 34. And the total project costs are $3,886,000. The breakout being $916,000 going to the construction fund for the ditch portion, and $2.9 million going, $2,970,000 going for the judicial. The structuring, we have assumed that for the county ditch portion, there is a 10-year repayment term, and we're using an estimated interest rate of 2.077%, and that the judicial ditch portion would have a 15-year repayment with an estimated interest rate of 2.436%. All of the debt service on all of the bonds will be repaid by those being assessed for the ditches, so it's there isn't any tax levy or anything. It is all coming from assessments. And I think that is a quick overview, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
I'll move approval.
Second.
Been moved and second. Any discussion, questions of Ms. Terry or anybody else there?
Well, I know we do this regularly. I mean, we get a lot of big projects going on. We do it regularly. And I've forgotten your name, though.
Terry.
Terry, yeah. And so thank you for helping put this together for us with interest rates that seemingly are good, and that we charge, is it 5% or what do we charge here? 4%? So.
Correct. We're doing 4% on that. That's correct.
Okay.
Is it 4%?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any other questions? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. I want to thank you very much for your work.
Thank you.
Good work.
Thanks for squeezing me
Thank
in
you,
before the
Terry.
break.
Oh, yes.
Oh.
Okay, we'll take a break. All right, let's renew our meeting here, start our meeting again with Pat. You want to give your update?
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, thank you.
Morning.
Morning, Pat.
Morning, Pat.
Morning, Pat. I think you can tell that we've been plenty busy by the last couple of people that have presented before you today. As you can see with the general information that I provide to you on a monthly basis, we're up in some areas, down in some areas, but overall work remains steady. We continue plugging away at prevention programs as well. And the civil areas, you noticed, we're through 9 months where we were for the entire year last year. So that just kind of helped show the need that we expressed a couple of years ago when we went through the process and were able to bring another individual on board. Is there any specific questions that any of the board members have with respect to the caseloads? Otherwise, I'm not going to read to you what's in the report.
The civil cases, is that mostly families that have some children issues and things like that, or was
those are not.
They're not.
Those are not. Those issues. Those cases are counted in other areas, whether there would be typically the child in need of protection or services. Those types of cases that involve human services and whatnot. These are not any type of civil matters involving families in that realm from a human services or social services standpoint.
Okay.
So.
Anybody have any other questions of
I just
the
appreciate
report?
the report.
Yep, we do appreciate. We appreciate the
good information.
Updates a lot.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you, Pat. Okay, at this time, we can have Ryan come up with our Public Works.
Morning, gentlemen.
Morning, Ryan.
Morning, Ryan.
Morning, Ryan.
Morning, Ryan.
You got quite a bit there to discuss.
Yeah, quite a bit of information items. Fortunately, one action item today. It's kind of always curious to see how the items ebb and flow a little bit. First order of action, and the only action item, is resolution for authority to procure right-of-way on County State Highway 14. This is for the planned segment from Minnesota Highway 30 north to County State Highway 4. That's included in our capital improvement plan. This is the second reconstruction phase of County State Highway 14. Obviously, we have the segment from our County State Highway 4 to our County State Highway 10 under construction this season. We'll be driving that next Tuesday with our road tour.
Oh, good.
So this is a request for approval to begin right-of-way acquisition and for use, if absolutely necessary, for the county engineer and the county attorney to pursue eminent domain as necessary.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. In discussion?
So Ryan, this
Drew?
is that piece that's going around that wetland, that farmland, and kind of bringing the road out around it, kind of.
This is the piece south from Minnesota Highway 30 to Highway 4.
Oh, south of there.
Next year's project, yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Second.
Where we're going around the Hobbs Wildlife Management Area, that's this year's project.
We're doing that.
Okay.
Been
Yep.
doing that
I
now.
thought that was done, so I just didn't know.
So
Yep.
Ryan, okay, we got a motion and a second. How much do you expect that this is going to cost?
Right now, I think our preliminary engineer's estimate is at about 3.8 million.
Okay, and that's for farmer's property or property that's alongside the roadway?
That's total project cost.
Total project
Yeah.
cost?
This project, as we look at, in fact, we're going to go later this week and do a little bit of a preliminary engineering design drive-through of the project with our design staff and our right-of-way agents. We're anticipating this being much more of a shoulder widening, pipe replacement, pavement recycling type of project, similar to what we had done on County Road 10. County Road 1 from Highway 30 to the north, as well as County Road 1 with the turnback portion from Good Thunder to 9, where wherever the road meets current horizontal or vertical alignment standards, we'll leave it in place, recycle the pavement, widen the shoulders so we've got good farm to market shoulders, and then strengthen the pavement. There will be some areas where we have to correct vertical curves so that we can bring them to 55 mile an hour.
But the
signs.
question was, how much is, okay, we're giving you authority to procure right of way. How much do you figure that would cost?
Well, I don't have a specific figure in hand. It's relatively reasonable because really we're strip taking
okay, so that's not going to be the major cost of the construction.
Oh, heavens,
The 3
no.
point some million dollars is mainly the reconstruction of the
primarily
road.
construction.
The main cost isn't going to be the right of way.
No, this is strip taking of existing underlying fee title right of way and then widening the right of way track so that we have adequate ditches and back slopes. So it's strip taking of agricultural property.
And how many miles is that?
I believe the length is a little bit over 5.
So it's going to cost us
about 3.8 million is what we've got in our
million
planning level
for-
estimates in the capital
for
improvement plan.
improving a road that's already there.
Yep. Generally speaking,
That's what I'm getting at, is not that it's too much.
No.
What I'm getting at is that so many people have no clue on how much it costs to maintain a road and to upgrade a road. You know, and when we're talking about trying to get our money back from the state of Minnesota, you know, this is what county costs are. This is what really costs money. I mean, we're not building a brand new road for $3.8 million. We're improving a road that's already there. And it's costing almost $4 million.
Yep. And
That's,
you know, that's half. I should probably add, you know, our regular schedule for these projects is that we do the widening type of work, the pavement recycling, the centerline pipe replacement. And then the subsequent year, we do come back and add an additional 2 inches of bituminous over the top. So
Right.
that'll be additional on top of the total project cost. So when we're all said and done, it'll be closer to probably 4.5 to 5 million for the total project. Generally, $850,000 a mile is kind of our running cost that we've tracked historically for these projects.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And that of course is, if you go back a few years, it's going up at $850 a mile.
Correct.
Yeah.
And this type of project is more economical than full reconstruction.
Right.
And then your estimate with, without getting help from the state of Minnesota, would we be able to do this without our 0.5% sales tax?
Not certainly to the extent that we're pursuing with our construction program. We would continue to fall behind.
Thank you.
And the total cost so for this segment is to the north is included in this project. I mean, it's a couple of year project, so it's probably more like $7 million.
For the total length of the road, say
Is it
10
from
miles
30
or so.
Pardon?
Right now we've got 3.5 miles underway, so it'll be just a little bit, I think 9 miles or so.
Okay.
But you know, those are separate phase projects. It's
Right.
just we're trying to identify this corridor where we feel it's an important road through the county, and that need those farm to market enhancements, as well as a stronger road and wider shoulders. And this was the next best candidate that was due for reconstruction that'll also serve a need and provides us a good venue.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
You're welcome.
Any further questions? All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carries.
All right.
Thank you, Ryan, for
Thank
that.
you. The remainder is informational items. Please feel free to chip in with questions at any point in time. County State Aid Highway 12. The curb and gutter is actually being finished up today on the 12 and 83 roundabout. Contractor is going to begin paving the roundabout north, and they're going to actually pave up to the next township road, which is 211th Street, so that they can provide access to the residences that able to get in and out throughout the rest of the season. They're planning on beginning that sometime next week once they get the aggregate base toleranced and finally prepared.
Rain
so they
kinda
can
did
pave on
help.
top. Yeah, the rain's had obviously on all of our projects, it's had a pretty considerable impact again. It's really unfortunate that not only does it rain numerous days per week, but then when it does, it's considerable volume as well.
Yeah.
I drove out through there yesterday and there's quite a bit of standing water, and you know, with our soil types, they do not drain down well. A half of an inch to an inch of precipitation per day if you're lucky. So as those areas pond, you know, the water does not infiltrate into the ground at a reasonable rate at all. So and when they're left in these graded states, it's tough to get them to drain properly. The sewer and water main is done on Hoffman Road, and that extends obviously to the east of our 12 roundabout with Highway 12 and Hoffman, so that'll serve future development. As we look at the project schedule and the delays that have been impacted and potential future weather impacts, obviously will continue to play a role. Our objective is to reopen the intersection of Highway 12 and Minnesota Highway 83 by the end of the month. So that's been considerably delayed now, the better part of month and a half now because of weather impacts, and obviously the pipeline had a little bit of an impact as well in pushing this back. So very frustrating on our part, as it is, I'm sure, for the state DOT to have their road continue to be closed, but we're continuing to push. Seeing the curb and gutter go in is definitely a good sign for us. Means that we're close to paving it and being able to reopen it. The contractor intends to continue with their grading and their aggregate base operation. We're still proceeding with the intention to reopen the road, at least up to Hoffman Road, with pavement this year. However, if we get additional detrimental weather impacts, we're going to have to probably put a contingency plan in place to reopen it as a gravel road and make some modifications that are necessary to do so. So we'll continue to see how Mother Nature treats us and play it by ear.
Today.
Exactly.
Nothing you can do about that.
No, unfortunately there's not, and we just have to be able to live with that fact. County State Highway 14, all the pipe and drainage work has been completed. And this is the segment from 4 to 10. So what I would say the northerly segment, which is southeast of the city of St. Clair. Grading continues on the north end. It's approximately 90% complete. They'll be tolerancing the gravel on the south end of the project next week and have paving scheduled for the week of October 23rd. Completion is estimated to be sometime around mid-November, and again I have to throw out that tremendous asterisk of weather dependent. I might have to just put that at the bottom of every email I send from here on out. County Road 109, the gravel base is in, which is also being utilized as a temporary surfacing. That's been completed. The ditches are approximately 25% final graded. Again, with all the rain, there's quite a bit of standing water in the ditches. That's a relatively flat, poorly drained project in the first place, so to get the water to go away, we need some of it to infiltrate and dry up. There's 75% of the ditch shaping and turf establishment is really all that's left, though. So that's the good thing, is putting the smooth back on it, shaping the ditches, getting the grass planted. So I think we're in good position to be able to open that one up again prior to the winter. They really have not been able to work out there in the last 3 to 4 weeks due to just the frequent rainfalls and the standing water out there. If they go out and try to do something, it's going to make it worse than it already is. All of the bituminous overlay work has been substantially completed on both rounds of our contracts that we've had. The Rapidan Dam, Kramer North America mobilized in last week, and they began constructing a temporary causeway that later had to be partially removed due to the increased river flows associated with our lovely weather patterns we've been getting. You know, their intention is still to resume the work when the flows subside. The Highway Safety Improvement Plan program projects, the shoulder widening, rumble stripes, pavement striping, and signs have been completed. Eagle Lake Public Water Access, the contractor began working last week. They're currently working on grading on the site, and they estimate to have work completed near the end of October. So we're hoping to have that reopened by end October, early November. Planning projects update, our County State Highway 5 bridges, 07526, 7239, and 7240 are the bridge numbers. We're going to be opening bids on November 1st, so I'll be bringing those to the first board meeting for your consideration of approval of a contract, hopefully. Schedule will allow for the contractor to have a flexible start date, so that it could really be winter work or it could be into next spring. And once they start, then the goal will be that they have to obviously stay on track, keep the project progressing along. And they won't be able to close all three at the same time. It'll be the southerly bridge or the two northerly bridges, depending how they would like to phase it, so that we can maintain access to folks out there.
Quick question then.
Yep.
So are the folks out there kept abreast of what's going on? I mean, so that they're kind of...
Well, the landowners that we had to purchase land from, we've been in communications with them. The folks that live out on that stretch, I don't know that we necessarily have, as far as...
I mean, like SMC, Betterstone.
Oh, well, again, that's the objective of tackling this, you know, winter or early spring.
Slows down their operation.
Right. There'll be a detour in place. They'll have to utilize the Seward County 102 or 101 to go to Highway 22. Our initial concern when we had looked at phasing this with the last advertisement and bid letting was all the excess traffic that was on Highway 22 because of the 169 closure.
Yeah. I just think
so now,
give them a call.
Yep.
Talk to them.
No, that's a good point. Once we kind of know when it's going to begin, they've been in contact with us in the past about this, and they've expressed their concerns about when we impact
We've
them.
been going on for a couple of years trying to figure this out.
I agree, and now we finally got at least partial funding for the bridge replacements. 50% of the bridge cost is covered through state bonds, so that's good.
Okay.
County State Highway 52, we also received 50% state bonds towards the bridge replacement. We're waiting on MnDOT plan approvals, and our plan is to let that in winter or spring of 2018 for 2018 construction. County State Highway 1 from County Road 9 to Mankato, the north end. The plans are 95% completion, so they're effectively ready to sign and submit to the state. We're just holding off on that a little bit until Jack has an opportunity to go out and meet with some of the landowners, and that way if they have any little things that they want changed, driveway revisions, drainage patterns, things like that, we can incorporate it into the plans that get approved by the state. So we're also working on receiving appraisals, and we've begun visiting with landowners out there for right-of-way acquisition. So most of them have been very welcoming. They're ready for that project to be completed and get a new road out there because it's long overdue.
Well, they're doing some of them that tell you they just want gravel.
For their driveways?
Well, for the road.
Oh, for the road? I haven't heard that yet.
I had one inferred
you?
that, but that's, you know, he probably just was.
I don't want it if it's gravel.
No, I don't either.
It's going to be challenging enough to maintain the way it is.
Yep.
The south end, which is the segment from County Road 9 to 90, that's intended for construction to begin in about 2019. They're at about 50% plan right now, working with SRF and Gale Tech, our consultant engineering firms. And we're beginning to meet with some of those higher impact landowners where we sit down with them to show them our preliminary design and take into consideration any concerns they have or any modifications they'd like to see or alternative methods, so that we can evaluate it and look at whether or not it fits into the design. And that helps us in the end when we go to do right-of-way acquisition, where they're comfortable with what we're doing, and we've listened to it and tried to meet their needs as much as possible. County State Highway 90 and Minnesota Highway 22 roundabout. We're still on track with that. In fact, I have a meeting this afternoon for the project management team. There is a public information meeting on October 26th from 5:30 to 7 p.m. at MnDOT Mankato. County State Highway 44 in Madison Lake. We recently, with MnDOT's assistance, collected traffic movement data so that we could do an analysis of a four-way stop as the city had requested. Unfortunately, I don't have staff to review that and do the warrants analysis at this point. So later this fall, when we get some of our help back in from the field, we'll be able to tackle that. I don't think it's a tremendous high urgency, but we do want to keep moving it forward. We have the County Public Works Road Tour next Tuesday. I did attach a copy of our map for the road tour for your review, and if you have any additional comments or considerations before we finalize that route, but I don't know if you've had an opportunity to review that at all or not, and try to get you back here by a little bit before 3 p.m.
Quick question I just wanted to ask.
Yep.
I don't know why, but some people told me when we had the open house out there at the golf club on 22 for the first open house
For MnDOT. Yep.
MnDOT's.
Yep.
And the people there was a few that were not feeling happy about it, partially because they didn't receive notice, they claimed. That they didn't get a notice. And I don't know, what are our obligations as far as notifying those immediate landowners? There's like a little neighborhood right there, you know what I mean? And
what I can't speak as, you know, I had heard comments about what MnDOT had done, and they do a similar method to what Blue Earth County does on a project where we capture effectively the travel shed, or at least the directly adjacent landowners to the project, and try to get all of their actual mailing addresses and summarize that, and we send out a notification letter for public open house meetings for projects like this. We send that out, and then obviously if we know there's other major players in the scenario, maybe large businesses or things like that, we'll generally send out a notification to them as well. This again is a MnDOT-led project, so I can't really comment on how maybe some of those, if they did or did not receive the notification, how they were missed. But it is also public. We publish publicly in the newspaper that we're having those meetings, usually a day in advance of them as well. So we do our best to try to reach the public. It's challenging sometimes if people don't read the paper, or if they don't open their mail or pay attention to it.
I didn't know. I'm asking what our obligations were. If there's
well, like you said,
we've got part of that road, so I don't know.
Again, it's MnDOT's taking the lead on the project, so that's their duty to do the public outreach. We're attending as a participant, obviously, because we're assisting with funding for the project.
Would you mind asking them?
Yeah, I can do that.
Notices, Ryan?
Yep.
Thank you.
all right.
All right. And then a couple other items was just recently announced, and Commissioner Campbell shared it with me as well, and I had received it from State Aid. An opportunity has arisen for a Transportation Alternatives Grant Program. This is kind of a replacement for Safe Routes to Schools and a couple of other grant programs. It doesn't have a tremendous pot, but it does offer $7.5 million total statewide available of federal funds. The County State Highway 16 trail from County Road 60 to Pleasant Street would be an eligible candidate project. So it requires submitting a letter of intent to apply for the grant. That has to be submitted by October 31st. So if the initial letter is accepted, they'll contact you to discuss your project, and then the full application needs to be submitted by mid-January of 2018. So I think that would be a good option. The letter of intent isn't entirely cumbersome, so I think we should complete it and get it in.
Ryan?
I don't think I need any formal board approval to submit it.
Okay.
I would have brought a resolution, would I need it, and if I do get into it and find that I need to have a resolution supporting application, I'll bring it forward maybe to the next board meeting on a 5-minute
Sounds good.
interval. In fact, I just got through the materials this weekend and read through all the program requirements, and now I need to get into actually filling out the application. So
It was sent to me, I sent it to you right away when I read through it, but through Region 9, our TAC staff there, for the Transportation Advisory Committee.
Yep, and it's federal funds, which obviously creates, and that's one of the things when we talk with them, if we are selected for the next round, is wetland mitigation and how that ties in with use of federal funds and how that will all reciprocate and carry forward. But I think it's definitely worth exploring. Other miscellaneous items, we're beginning to work on the ADA transition plan, and that was a contract that was let through the MPO. We're working with the Technical Advisory Committee on the MPO with some kickoff meetings. They'll be doing some data collection and determining the needs of each individual agency. So at some point, the objective, I think, following the actual MPO committee meetings, that we would bring it forward to the county board in a work session after we have some content. But Blue Earth County is kind of on the second half of that contract, so it really won't be taking a lot of traction right out of the gate as they're working on some of the other smaller communities first. We also have, I'm sure you're well aware, our second public information meeting for County State Highway 17 in Hafner Drive. That'll be tomorrow from 5 to 7 p.m. at the Eagle Lake City Hall. And our maintenance striping contract, the last round mobilization, they should be coming in today to begin striping the seal-coated roads as well as the majority of the eastern half or third of Blue Earth County. So that's the second mobilization that they've come in as part of our annual maintenance contract.
All right.
So with that, I would answer any other questions.
Anybody have any questions from Ryan?
I plan on attending the meeting tomorrow night at the City Hall, but we'll be coming in from St. Paul, so if we're not there right at 5, we'll be there shortly after
But being that it's an Eagle Lake, it might get there by 5.
All right.
We'll be there.
All right.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Thank you, Ryan.
We'll see you guys tomorrow.
Anybody else?
Thanks, Ryan.
Appreciate all your good work.
Have a good day.
Thank you.
a lot.
All right. I suppose we should. Do we want to do the administrative services and have the community reports later? Finish with them? Yes. Okay, Bob, do you want to do, well, I guess we should start county minutes.
Move the minutes.
Move the minutes, second. Discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carries. And bills for the
Move
week,
bills.
so, move the,
Second.
Will was second, and then I think, anyway. All those in favor of the bills, you got questions yet?
Just a
Okay,
couple. I don't have
all right,
any.
okay.
And they were shorter than sometimes too, both those weeks were, the pages weren't as many.
Right.
But the INS Group Incorporated, there's 2 of them on the first week. One was 64,978 and the other one is 107,944. And I was just kind of curious, so it's good to hear what the project is that they're working on.
Can you see it in the dark? That's what I would.
Yeah, I'm having trouble.
I'd play my Jeopardy music, but.
I'm having trouble locating them, sorry.
The bills, it's that first week, but ISG,
INS.
INS.
One says contracted services, the other says sites, grounds, improvements.
It's probably for the building.
One's for the building, one's
next
for
door,
ditches.
yeah. One's for ditches.
They've gotten paid quite a bit so far for planning. I'm just wondering what else is getting planned.
We'll be paying until it's done, so.
Yeah,
I don't know why, but it's not.
it's not in there.
Bob, it's I and then the and sign and then S.
Right, but I don't know if I got the wrong sheets
That
or
was
what,
yours.
but it's not showing up
Oh,
on
okay.
my list
I
here.
thought maybe you were looking for ISG
Well,
or
no.
something.
You just email us later. Then Northern Comfort building improvements. That's the only other one I had. Was Northern Comfort building improvements, 24,828 even.
That was the one they put a new furnace in my place.
In your house?
Yeah.
Must have been a pretty nice one. Yeah. Maybe you got the wrong packet.
I think I do.
Yeah.
I'm not finding either one of these. I'm sorry, I don't know what's
the
happened
wrong
there.
packet. Okay.
We'll get answers later, that'd be fine.
Yeah.
Northern Comfort and INS.
Yep.
Yeah.
First week. Okay, any other questions? All those in favor of paying the bills, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carries. All right, then we have, I guess, information, human resources.
Oh, yeah. That's
Mr. Chair and Commissioners, all of the items today are informational items. We did have the resignation of a custody officer, and so we have initiated recruitment to refill that position. We also have filled 2 current openings in that custody officer role. And then lastly, we have an appraiser that's completed 6 months of employment and is eligible for a salary adjustment. Be happy to answer any questions that the board has on those.
Any questions? Okay. Well, moving on then, we need to set a date for on the buffer law ordinance.
Yes, as Mr. Chair and Commissioners, the County Board has elected to assume jurisdiction over the buffer law, and so in order to implement that law fully locally, we do need to pass a local ordinance, and so we're, excuse me, we're recommending setting a public hearing on that ordinance for October 24th at 9:15 a.m.
I'll move
Okay.
approval.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye. There's a question. Hold it. Go ahead.
Sorry, no. I just wanted to mention, from the, I attend, the AMC, Environment Natural Resources, steering committees, and, most all the counties in Minnesota have adopted this. I think there's something like, don't quote me, I'm very close to it, but there might be like 14 counties out of 87 that haven't adopted this. Doesn't that sound about right, maybe?
Yeah, I think you're right.
It's like 72 or something. And so I think it's a good thing, and especially I think it could place a hardship on the SWCDs if you don't, because the state is expecting them to take over a lot more responsibility if the county doesn't. And they already are going to be doing a lot more work as we adopt this resolution and this ordinance that we're gonna hopefully adopt to take on the buffer laws. So I'm for it, and I think all of us here are for it, and we've been discussing it for quite a while. So.
Okay. We have the motion in front of us. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. All right, then we have the, we went back to the drainage inspector reports.
Yes, Mr. Chair and Commissioners, we have 5 different drainage systems that have some repairs that are needed. First is CD 27. This is some work that needs to be done on that ditch that's estimated to be in the neighborhood of $20,000 to $25,000. I will note that a number of these ditches, if we hit those repair amounts, it'll push those ditch balances into the negative. But starting with 27, we have a little over 19,000 in that balance, and again, the estimate is 20,000 to 25,000. Next is County Ditch 35. Here the estimated repairs runs from 15,000 to 25,000, and we do have $16,000 in that balance. The third ditch is County Ditch 50. The estimate there is $30,000 to $40,000 of repairs are needed. The balance in that count is $31,800. Next is County Ditch 86 with some cleaning and tree removal needed there. The estimate is $25,000 to $30,000. Fortunately, here we do have $46,000 in our ditch balance. The last ditch is CD 93. The estimated repair is $35,000 to $40,000. Again, this is one of the ditches with only $22,600, so this one will most likely go into a negative balance situation.
Okay.
I'll move approval of the repairs.
Been moved to approval of the repairs. Is there a second? Then a second. Any discussion? Drew?
The only concern I have sometimes is that I see that they have the same exact company for all 5 cleanouts. 1, 2, 3. Is it 5 cleanouts?
Right. Yes.
Actually, there's one next to the other one, but and I know that these farmers out there want these cleaned up before next spring. And I'm just wondering how we end up assigning the same company for all of them, and they have to stage in different locations throughout the county. 2 of them I see are in Decoria Township, so that might make sense to have the same company, but I'm just wondering how we do that, because I don't know, I'm concerned that maybe we could get another company to do some of that clean out work too at the same time, get them done, unless they've got enough capacity they can do it all at once.
Well, the ditch manager works with the contractors to line them up, and I'm sure he's aware and concerned about getting these projects done because we have such a small window here in the fall to try and get that work done or early in the spring before crops go in. So I'm sure that he's had those kinds of discussions with the contractor to make sure that they have the resources needed to complete these projects.
A lot of it is on availability of the contractors too.
That's how they pick them.
Yeah,
and a lot of these people want a certain contractor.
Oh, yeah.
They want certain
people. So that all weighs into it. But yeah, it's, if they can't get to all of them, they'll just go on to the next one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's surprising how many people say, I got a guy, I got somebody that's gonna deal with it. And Groundworks is getting to be, pretty active out that drainage area.
Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
They're doing a good job.
Okay. Any other questions? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. And now we have the, I guess we do the financial status report.
Well, Mr. Chair and Commissioners, this is the financial status report for the end of our third quarter in our fiscal year. You'll see that our total revenues and total expenses both are just a bit over 50% compared to our annual budget. That's fairly typical at this time of the year, even though it's a little lower than we might expect. A lot of activity tends to happen in the fourth quarter, especially with the late construction year that we're having here and what you heard from Ryan earlier this morning. On that contract and fees line under the expenditures, again, you compare where we're at this year even to last year, we're a couple $1 million behind the pace, so to speak. And when you look at our total budget of almost 35 million in that contracted and fees line, we know that we have some road projects that are lagging behind and quite frankly probably won't come in at that budgeted target based on where things are lining up. Overall, our revenues and our expenditures are running a little bit behind last year's pace as well. But to be at the end of our third quarter and have a deficit of about 800,000 at this point based on how our budget was developed with the budget deficit planned for, I'm feeling pretty good about where we're at this point. Down at the bottom of the page is the enterprise fund, which is the Ponderosa. You'll see there again that revenues are lagging behind expenses, but again we have the cell development that is occurring out at the landfill, which is kind of a capital improvement or an investment in the Ponderosa, and so that was an expected outcome at this point. The second page shows our cash and investment balances. Our total cash is at $102,773,481. Again, a little bit down from the year prior at this time, but that was expected based on some of the budgeting that has been done over the last couple of years. All in all, I think things are still looking fine at this point in the year, but I'd be happy to answer any questions that the board might have.
Any questions?
No, thanks.
Looks good. I mean, it's all right. Okay. If there's no other discussion with the financial report there, I guess we should go back to what remains is committee reports. Let's go again with this side. Will?
Yeah, mine's relatively brief. On the 2nd, I had a meeting with Phil Clausen and Bob regarding some things that the Brown County Evaluation Center can do to help with the Yellow Ribbon or Yellow Line project. And then on the 4th, we had department heads. And then yesterday I had my Brown County Evaluation Center meeting. We talked about finalizing our budget. We talked about some expenditures, and we're looking at a significant increase on the per diem rate simply because the numbers are down. it's a good thing for Blue Earth County's numbers are down significantly, but it doesn't help the bottom line for the evaluation center over there. So they're looking at some things they can do to improve their bottom line and maybe streamline services, and we'll see where it goes. And that's my report.
Thank you, Bill. Oh, Kip, let's start with you.
After the last board meeting, we were over at the RETA meeting with Commissioner Stuenberg, Commissioner People, and Administrator Meyer was there. Jonathan and his group put on a nice presentation. We had a presentation from
Connie Ireland. Connie Ireland, yep.
Connie, and just had a nice overview of what's going on in the state and how RETA is actually doing a good program trying to get things developed in this area. So hats off to Jonathan and his group. Then the next week I was at my MRCI meeting in the afternoon. We are in the process of just dealing with all kinds of different things. Had a good month, but we are anticipating the next, November and December get kind of slow because of all the holidays and they take off a week. So we always struggle with trying to show a profit at the end of those. Then MRCI had after hours last Tuesday. Vance was there. We had a nice turnout, and Jonathan gave a nice report about MRCI, and Brian also did talk a lot about what the programs that we have here in the Blue Earth County area and up in the metro area. And he also talked about it being their 65th birthday next year. So got a lot of things going on up there. Managed to make it to the Hafner Drive open house. A lot of good discussion. Not a whole lot of all landowners there around the Hafner Drive intersection. Not too many constituents from the general public, but hopefully we'll see some more of that tomorrow night in Eagle Lake. Then we had the department head meeting, and then last Wednesday night I had the planning and zoning meeting, which was very long. It went to almost 11 o'clock. We had a couple board of adjustment meetings, so we got off to a late start. We had like 5 items on the agenda, so we'll see all those at the end of the month. They were all pretty straightforward. There wasn't a whole lot of public comment, but they were just a lot of data to go through, so it was a late night for us. Then we had an EMS meeting. We are in the process of possibly getting a grant for $50,000 to administer the child safety seat program. And so we're trying to struggle with whether we should take that on with our staff, because we're kind of spread kind of thin now, but they have gone through the process. They thought it worked well with the Towards Zero Death program. So you mentioned Scott Wrighton's name earlier. He was the old director of the EMS organization. Mark's doing a great job with it now, and so we did approve Mark to move forward and try to get that program going, just because we think it will fit in good with the Towards Zero Death stuff. And it's a program that we really need to teach people how to make sure their kids are strapped in their seats properly. And I think anytime we can get to more people, 1 or 2 seats to show people how it's done right, I think that's just really important. So the board concurred with that.
I was blessed to have that training back when I was in law enforcement.
Yeah.
And it's interesting how many people don't know how to.
But haven't they changed it a little bit since then?
Well,
I've noticed that with grandkids they have.
There's more things, safety things now on cars. But the trouble is, we still have a lot of old cars on the road, and to get the right seat for the right child, and then put it in safe so the seat doesn't
like I said,
move.
even the seats themselves has changed a little bit.
But it's a 4-day training course to learn how to strap those in.
4 days.
Would you hire anybody, do you think?
Well, at this point, we're thinking we've got a couple options. Try either going to hire, we'll either subcontract it out, but we've also been talking about hiring someone, using that grant to pay their salary, because we do a good CPR program out in the rural area too. So that's been very, very successful. So we could let that person do kind of both roles. So we're in the process. We didn't have to have that detail done to say we'd take the grant, but we have to provide the service. But we didn't have to let them know how we're going to fill that at this point. So we'll make that decision in the next month or so.
Okay.
I'm leaning personally towards just hiring another person to have them in the office. So we'll see how the discussion goes, because there's concerns on both sides of that issue. Then I was over in Mapleton the other day for a County Ditch 36 project. Another project that's been an ongoing battle the last 5 years. We spent $36,000 to $40,000 a year on that ditch. it's an open ditch right next to the road with bad soils, and do we try to slope it back more and make it last, or for $500,000, or do we bury it, put a pipe in the ground for $1 million? And the consensus of the group was they want to look at it both ways, and it's not a whole lot of landowners on this, but that ditch just continues to be an issue. And if they do clean it, you can bet we're going to spend a bunch of money on it again next year because of the soils, and we're going to have to make it wider and bigger. And so the discussion moved around putting in a 48-inch pipe and burying it, and then just having a swale for overflow on top. So it wouldn't still go to productive farmland, but it would quit eroding at the fields, and it would also give them a little more farmland back because the swale wouldn't have to be quite as big, but it would be a dry grass swale. And it's amazing that the farmers see the potential and the expense of cleaning ditches. So when they can do this, so we're gonna have another meeting after the farmers are done in the field. But it was interesting to see the way the discussion went. But these public informational meetings are so nice. All this stuff used to be done inside the board meeting, and very cumbersome trying to get something done when you have a whole board here that has the authority to make decisions. By getting out there and just talking to them, we had INS group was there visiting with us, and both the manager and Ryan were there, and you just get some one-on-one discussion, and you can really come up with some good ideas instead of trying to deal with it in the boardroom. So that will be coming up more and more the next month or so. And then I was at my SWCD meeting last Thursday afternoon, and things are going well there. They are trying to get a little trailer for their four-wheeler because they've been doing a lot of inspections, and they are very supportive of us taking over the buffer law enforcement. So with that brings me to today, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you, Kip. Vance.
All right. Well, a lot of my stuff was already gone over, but on September 27th, the day after our last board meeting, I attend the CADA meeting in the morning, and it's a monthly meeting that I attend. And then I had a NACO transportation call-in that day, and then the RETA annual meeting, which Kip really covered well. Good meeting. On October 2nd, I attended the Transportation Alliance Board Retreat, and we went over how we're going to go forward with Transportation Alliance in the state of Minnesota. On October 3rd, I attended the Business After Hours at the MRCI East Port. Is that what they call Eastport out there?
Yep.
Great facility. It really helps the folks that work with MRCI. October 4th, I attended the Hafner Drive discussion. We had a Hafner Drive discussion with GMG in the morning, and then department head meeting that day, and then the Hafner Drive open house that evening. Good discussions throughout the evening. On October 5th, 6th, and 7th, I attended the Rural Action Caucus Symposium in Wise County, Texas. We had...
Wise County, huh?
Yeah, it's Decatur, which is just north of Fort Worth, about 45 miles. Discussion, we had some really good discussions on mental health issues in the county. The World War on opioids, which of course it's a national epidemic, and we have a problem here as much as anywhere else. Discussion on low-income housing. We had discussions on poverty in rural America and strategies to enhance disaster resilience. So we actually got on the phone with commissioners that were right on the line with when Hurricane Harvey came in. They were actually the commissioners we talked to were in the second tier counties, and their counties had some very, very serious, and they talked about the first tier counties that were right on the water, and it was just devastated. I mean, they're talking years before they can get. They showed a picture. There was one courthouse, the top was ripped off the courthouse. And of course, then all the rain and all the stuff. So all the paperwork and all the files and everything was destroyed. So how do you get FEMA money when you don't have the information to come back and have that? Because all that information was destroyed.
Even their computer,
everything was destroyed inside. So there was some really interesting discussion on how to set up for something like this. There's some of those disasters you just can't
prepare for. Huh?
You can't prepare for. I mean, how do you prepare for something like that? That
50 inches plus rain.
Yeah.
Well, I know.
So, and then 150 mile an hour consistent wind, not a wind gust, but just going on for hours and hours and hours at 150 miles an hour. Unbelievable. So, and then the lighter part of that, we toured the NRS Ranch, which is the National Rope Supply, and think about Cabela's in the horse tack world.
Oh wow!
It was amazing. Just the store was amazing. I mean, of course, everything is Western wear and boots and.
Did you bring a big cowboy hat back?
I couldn't afford that big cowboy hat.
How about spurs? Did you?
Yeah, I got spurs.
I could have bought some spurs. I had no reason. But then we were showed they actually it's a ranch, so they actually they raise cattle there, and then they teach people how to rope. And for $1,500, you can go down there for 3 days, and they'll teach you how to rope. And they take people like me and you, and that have never roped before, and teach you how to rope a calf.
They use mostly hemp rope, do you know, or?
I have no idea what kind of rope they use.
That was a question.
Then we went through Hanson Aggregates. It's a limestone quarry with 2,000 acres of quarry. You take one of our gravel pits and think of it 2,000 acres, and it is open pit mining with limestone, and most of the stuff is used for cement in Fort Worth and Dallas. That's what they do. But they said they take out 200 million tons of aggregate a year. It's just amazing. You can't. It's just on. But you always have those pictures of those big trucks that drive in those open pit mines. Yeah, we were right there. And that's pretty cool, pretty neat. And the last thing we toured the Center for Animal Research and Education, or CARE, and they take in. When people think that they should raise a exotic animal and then decide that they might get killed by this exotic animal when it grows up, then they have to find a place for it. So we have lions and tigers, but no bears, but leopards and of course some of the stuff they've raised. So I mean these animals weren't. They see a human being. They're very comfortable around human beings, and like they said, you don't teach these animals how to be pets because they're wild, and you walk in there and they'll kill you. They might be very friendly on the other side of the fence, but so interesting stuff. And then I came back.
Okay.
And I'm all ready for our next segment in our open house in Eagle Lake tomorrow night, where I'll be at for Hafner Drive.
Okay.
Well, I can appreciate, some of those things about that hurricane, because that we're not used to getting hurricanes with sustained winds like that. But I can tell you, I'm happy that it wasn't our county, because I can understand the ones down there, but places like around Houston County, where the city and the county somehow relaxed the rules of building in wetland areas. and those houses were really underwater. And those are middle-class homes. Now they have basically no value. I mean, the economic devastation to that area is going to be felt for years to come.
Well, that's all.
And it hinges on the decisions that you and I make right here. Like if we're going to let people build right on the bluffs that could erode in the next 10, 20, 30 years, that's on our heads too, I feel. And I think that we have to really take that and understand what it's like when we pass our ordinances and things like that here. It's very important.
Well, the feds will even allow build, and they'll pay for it's a whole.
Now they're paying people back for these problems.
Yeah. But anyway,
your dollars going to that.
Mr. Chair, I did find out the answers to the bill questions. I apologize
okay, before we
about that,
conclude with my report, go ahead, Bob.
Okay. The $64,000 to INS Group were 9 county ditches.
Wow.
And then the $107,000 payment was part of our building project, so some of the work they're doing in the design of that building. And then the $24,000 to Northern Comfort was a air conditioning unit at the library.
Oh, yeah, we talked
right.
about that too, remember?
Right.
Yeah, we talked about that. So.
Okay.
Apologize for that.
Thank you, Bob. Okay, now I'm going to take about 20 minutes and everybody's going to listen, because,
We will.
Yeah, so I'm not allowed an adjournment. No. Yeah. No, I just had partners, Affordable had a special meeting on Wednesday, the 27th, and we're planning their Homeless Awareness Week, which is about that midweek in November. Some activities and a little bit of not just awareness, but raising a little money. Trying to do it where we have a program where you sit in your car and you're like homeless, and you have your phone, you're texting, whatever. You got to raise money, and the more money you raise, and whatever you want to pay yourself or pay to start your car, because it'll probably be a little bit cold. So it's that kind of thing where it's not quite as rough as being in a tent, but it's to get the idea across. Yeah. So you and your big truck can come out there and sit there and be cold, but you got to raise money then and then you can pay to start your car. Anyway, then we had Rita with Vance and Kip and Bob, and then on Thursday did have actually Partners for Affordable Housing board meeting. Had to hire new staff and to help Jen out there as people turnover and so forth. As a good nonprofits, you have a hard time always keeping people because you can't give them the same benefits as they might get somewhere else. So that's always a challenge. The department heads, and then the Hafner Drive Public Open House, and then on Friday, October 6th, Scott Fickner, we were both in Albert Lee, Freeborn County, for our solid waste that moves around from county to county, members of the solid waste group. So had that, and that pretty much concludes my report. So it wasn't so long.
That's pretty nice.
Yeah. So
can I make one comment too before we close? Just an announcement. Smile Center is doing an activity this Friday, and they've been working on things in our community, especially downtown here in the Lincoln Park area, as starting out with their program, and that is making the area, or trying to look at walkability, issues, and not just walkability, but people who face mobility challenges. And so this Friday at 3 p.m., people will be meeting at the Public Safety Building down on Front Street, and making their way down Front Street, crossing all the intersections, and they'll have 3 or 4 wheelchairs available. People will take turns getting in those wheelchairs and walking along and see the challenges that people face crossing roads and intersections. Then they'll go down to Riverfront and cross and go to Hy-Vee, and then come back. And I think that it's a good learning thing, because unless you do it, there's many of our intersections where when you hit that ramp, it can almost flip a chair all the way over. And these are people who cannot use their legs that are in these chairs a lot at all. And in fact, they can't use their arms sometimes very well. So it's just a good thing. If anybody knows if anybody would like to go, elected officials are invited. 3 o'clock Friday at the Public Safety Center. be a part of
This Friday then.
Good.
This Friday, yeah. So,
Okay. Anything else? And it's time, except, well, no, we'll move to adjourn. Recess, excuse me, recess. Okay, move recess and second.
where are we going?
Second.
We're recessing to Papa George's.
Papa George's.